Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Facts on the Ground. I am Misty Winston, and I am joined as always by my co-host, Jesse Zerwell. We have a very special guest today. She is a former attorney, a politician, host of the new podcast, Generational Change, which you can find on YouTube. We'll link to that in the show notes, obviously. But she was also somebody who ran in 2020 against the ever-beloved Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So I'm very excited to talk to her about that. But today we are pleased to welcome Jen Perelman to the show. Jen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. And you got everything right, except I'm not a former attorney. I actually reactivated. I mean, I was always an attorney, but now
right.
Former, I don't know what else.
Former and now also just an attorney. I guess I should just say you're an attorney anyways, because once you're an attorney, you're always an attorney. Really.
Yeah, but I don't ever put that in my, I don't use that. I don't introduce, that would have been, of everything you said, that would have been one thing I would have left out.
Right. Fair enough. I'm open to constructive criticism. I get it. So yeah, before we talk about your run against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, which is endlessly fascinating to me because I can't stand her. Can you just, for any of our viewers who not know much about you or kind of how you got involved in politics, can you kind of just tell us a little bit about your journey to running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Yeah. So I grew up in South Florida. I'm actually a second generation native. So I grew up down here. This is my home. I live in Broward now, but same general vicinity. And I left for a while, went off, did school, came, husband, kid later. And then I moved back here in 2003. And I have just been watching my representative take corporate money hand over fist, first in our state house and now as our congresswoman. And, this was always something that bothered me, and I've been told for many years, you should run. And it's just, there's a lot of things that have to come into play. Like we could talk about that, but it really needs to be a perfect storm. It does. It's not, if you just want to do it, it's gotta be a thing. So timing is a big factor. And a few years ago, I really got reconnected with who is now my business partner. And we just started talking about it. And he just sort of had this thought like, yeah, you have the demographic. And unfortunately, a middle-aged Jewish woman is what's going to win in this district. It just is again, part of the perfect storm. And my background, really growing up, my parents were hippies. I grew up, my very first protest was at the 1972 Republican National Convention in Miami Beach in a stroller. So I was always involved. It was always, there were issues that obviously mattered to me more. Criminal justice is huge for me. Death penalty is a big issue for me. So that are just my personal things. And, but really it's just about standing up for people that don't have a voice because I have a privilege to do so. And that's really what it is. It's a privilege. It's like anything else. If you have the ability to do something, you do it, And so I feel like I am in a position where I can take 2 years of my life without working. How many people can do that? See, this is part of the problem that we're trying to fix, is that this is something everyone should be able to do. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And all the factors kind of collided. And my now business partner basically said, you should run and I'll help you. See, that was the thing. People would always say, you should run. But no one ever said, and I'll help and we'll do, did it as a team. So I guess, did I get the right points?
Yeah, no, I just really just wanted to, kind of give everybody who may not be super familiar with you, just a little bit of an introduction as to who you are and kind of your motivation behind running for office. So you did run against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, which, as I mentioned, I love because I hate her. She's terrible. She's really just a shit stain of a human being. So what was kind of, did you have sort of that same, you live in her district and she's obviously super corrupt. So was that a huge motivating factor for you? And were you at all daunted at the fact of taking on Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is very firmly protected by the establishment?
Look, everything about her was an impetus to challenge her, because if I had a representative that was actually representing regular people and doing their job, I wouldn't run for office. This isn't that, I want that job. And that's a big thing about running for office, is I think the mindset of why you're doing something is very important, because how we did this and running against her was really a very organic, grassroots, ground up kind of approach And as a result, no, I wasn't. First of all, I'm not scared of her. I'm not really scared. I don't scare easily. But no, I'm not at all daunted by her. We anticipated certain obstacles that were absolutely thrown in our way. We were ghosted by local media. The Dem clubs ignored us. I mean, a lot of things. I mean, definitely. We obviously couldn't have anticipated COVID, which was very detrimental to a grassroots campaign, being that we couldn't canvass. We lost about 6 weeks really of really important time right in the middle of the summer when we really needed it. So, there were a lot of things, but we did well, and we're happy with how we did. It's interesting because people think that if you lose, then you just lose. But that's not it, because what we've started and the movement and really building coalitions down here and making connections. I mean, it's been the best experience, and so it depends on if it's just a means to an end to get that job versus are you just part of this bigger movement, and everybody that you bring on board, that you reach, that you educate just becomes part of the solution. And I think that when we went into it with that mindset in the first place, so, that's the thing. And yeah, she's a bully. She did some pretty underhanded things. There was, if you went to jenperelman.com, it went to her congressional webpage. She's already stolen every future potential domain name. Like she's her, but no, I'm not, I'm not scared of her. But yeah, it's a money game.
So my question then to you, Jen, is why would you want to work within this system that's obviously corrupt? It has a insanely long track record of being corrupt. Why would you want to work within that to try to change what you feel needs to be changed?
Yeah, and the answer is I really don't. I really don't. It's like there won't be enough showers in a day. But this goes towards what I was just talking about. Like, what are you seeking? What's the end result? Do I think that somebody like me being in Congress is all of a sudden going to break through to people like Nancy Pelosi and we're going to take over and get all these things we want? And no, somebody like me probably won't be very effective in that regard, because somebody like me isn't going to play ball with people and isn't going to compromise. But here's the other thing, and people don't always think about this when it comes to congressional seat. It isn't all just about what happens in Washington. It isn't all about the laws you pass and that's part of it. But a big part of it is the size of that platform and the attention that you can bring and what you can do. Going back to what I'm saying is being part of a movement. So let's look at AOC and criticize her, whatever, do what you want to do, or however. She's made a significant push in the movement in terms of the dialogue that we're having, the fact that we even have people in Congress that are like her. And so it's all progress forward. Obviously, we're never going to be happy with what people, do all the time. But for me, being in Congress, I would get so much more done here for my district, for my people. She doesn't do anything for anybody here. So, in terms of, do we automatically get Medicare for all? No. But do I make a big enough stink about it and draw attention to a platform and get more people on board until we get louder and louder and louder? Yeah. So it's just a matter of, being, I think, reasonable about what to expect. Like, I don't expect to be able to work with a lot of those people, to be honest with you.
So so my question would be then so AOC, I'm very much somebody that criticizes her, and I disagree with you that she has pushed the conversation. In some ways she has, I guess, but she has also very much shifted to the right since being elected. She now toes the party line on almost every issue. For example, she has really stopped talking about Medicare for all, and it's kind of shifted to expanding healthcare. She, kind of goes along with the imperialism line. She is constantly bitching and moaning about Republicans, but never calls out anybody in her own party. So it's, and this is something I asked to all politicians, and Christina Livio can tell you, I told her straight to her face, I don't trust her as a politician. I like her as a person. I don't trust any politician.
Well, I'm not a politician. So
if you're running for office, you kind of are. I mean, that's just nature of the beast.
And it shouldn't be. See, here's the thing. And this is the premise of our whole campaign, is that a politician isn't something that even should exist. That's not a thing. That's not a career. That's not something you be. What that's supposed to be are regular people representing their constituents. Now, the fact that it's gotten so convoluted and twisted and turned into what it is, that's the problem we're trying to solve. So I reject the idea that nobody should be a politician. That's not a career choice. So that also comes into the idea with whether you support term limits or the different ways to rectify the system that we have. But this isn't something that should ever be a career.
But it is, though. That's the problem.
Well, and I understand that. But
yeah,
for me personally, the thought of like, no. Like,
I get it. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, for you, you don't personally like that label, but in the system,
no, not that I don't like that label. I don't want that job, that career. That's not my career. I don't want that to be my career. I don't want to do, like, and what I do think is we need more people in there that feel that way. I do think Alex is interested in a career. I think that she's playing the game to get along. And I don't excuse or, forgive anything that isn't in line with what she originally said in terms of, would I vote for her? Do I support her as a person? All of that. However, she, just by her mere existence and being able to get elected and beat Joe Crowley in 2018, has opened up this whole world, because that was one of the reasons why I realized that it was a time where, oh my God, somebody non-corporate could get in. So what I'm suggesting is that we appreciate and recognize her place in that push, whether or not we agree with where she is right now, and move on. Just like anybody who contributes to a movement in any way, I say the same thing about Bernie when people trash him for not doing more. Let's appreciate what he did do. Let's appreciate that and move on. Does that mean you support them 100%? And no. But again, I don't believe in this whole idol worship mentality with people. I just call it out when and if necessary. But yeah, I just think that they're all just people, and you're going to like what they do sometimes, and you're not going to like what they do sometimes. And, that's just the way it is. Now, if we had term limits,
I guess that my question though was, and we asked this to Steve Cox the other day when we interviewed him. He's running as an independent in California. But it's very easy to say now that you would stand up to the establishment. But once you're elected, it seems like, everybody in the squad has shifted to the right. Bernie Sanders has shifted to the right.
Well, Bernie Sanders always played with them. And let's be real, he's an independent. And he's come right. He's always played with them. He's always been that. Okay.
But I mean, even just in terms of his rhetoric, the things that he's willing to fight for, he is 100% shifted to the right.
Yeah.
I mean, he pushed Russiagate, and he's, backing off of the 2000 stimulus. And he's gotten really bad. So I guess because I'm not asking this to be confrontational, but I don't believe in electoral politics. So I'm just like, do you really think that you can kind of fend off that DC mentality and getting co-opted by the system?
Yeah.
Because once you're there, you're surrounded by that corruption.
Yeah. I'd also point out, just looking at somebody like Alex and looking at somebody like me, is that I don't want this as a career. I'm closer to wanting to retire. Okay. I had a little hippie art business going, making these things and doing my thing. I wasn't even practicing law. I want to live in the mountains. I want to have an artist co-op and have chickens and bees. So I can't speak as to what other people want, but I think that this is meant to be a term of service. That's always been what this is about. Our podcast is about transforming politics into service. My entire campaign was a service-based campaign. I do view somebody in that position, and it infuriates me about Debbie. This is one of the things that infuriates me about her. She doesn't do anything for our community. She doesn't do anything for the people down here. So that's her job, because her job isn't just to legislate. Her job is to serve the community. These are public servant positions. I always say that's my employee and she's insubordinate. And I think that that's always been my mentality. And again, I'm not a politician. I've never run for anything before. I'm an artist, wannabe hippie pothead, right? It's just, I happen to be an attorney. I happen to be a certain demographic. And if I can use that to get someone like her, that's a corporate whore, out of office, then that's what I'm going to do. And I said from day one that I would want to immediately start mentoring whoever else might want to ever take that job. But yeah. So I can only speak for me. That's it. I don't have platitudes. I don't have rhetoric. I'm just me. That's what I said when you're like, how do I introduce you?
Yeah, I'm just Jen.
I'm just Jen. And that's never changed. I have been this, it's funny because I have friends that are now still friends that are following me from like, we went to school together, and you could ask any person, like, I am the same kid that sat on my aunt's steps for like 3 hours refusing to apologize because I just wasn't going to admit that I was wrong. Like, you know, like the same personality. And I don't need to make friends, and I don't need a career, and I don't care what. So that's sort of where I'm at. But I understand the skepticism, and I understand being leery, and we're in that world. And that's part of why I'm doing this, because that makes me sad. I think everybody in Congress should just be a regular person that you could just go up to and have a normal conversation with, and that should just be members of their community. And we lost our way. So
I have often said that I would rather like walk into a random grocery store and just pick somebody from the bread aisle and vote for them rather than I would vote for almost anybody that is running for office.
Yeah. And this is why I have always supported publicly financed elections. Like to me, if you don't need to limit how much money people give you. You just take it completely off the table. I think, and I've always said this should be like, remember in high school when you'd run for student government, you had like an amount, like everyone can spend $100 or, whatever it is. Well, we obviously need more than $100, but everybody gets whatever they get. Everybody gets the same airtime, and you get that by collecting signatures or whatever the process is to get onto. I mean, obviously you can't just walk in and say, hey, let me have my money. I want to run for office. But this is something that should be available to everybody. I believe in 3-month election cycles, because nobody should have to give up their whole life for 2 years and forfeit income in order to be able to do this. And so there's a lot of things. And I've sort of feel like in some ways I've been like a whistleblower going into this process. And I still feel like that. Like people have no idea how disgusting this is. And I'll call people out by name too. That's the thing. Yeah. I have 0 F's to give.
So how do you feel about like paper ballots?
Oh yeah. Well, not just paper voting. Ballots.
Yeah.
We have paper ballots, but we have paper ballots that are counted by a machine.
Right.
Okay. So hand counted paper ballots, okay, is what we need. Our machines are ridiculous. They're the same one that's used in like 2/3 of the states. And then when we get a recount, it's still not hand counted. It just goes through the machine again. Mm-hmm. Which I don't understand.
I'll tell you, that was one of the most, I supported Bernie Sanders in 2016, hesitantly, but I supported him in 2016. I donated almost the max amount. I phone banked, I volunteered, I canvassed for him. I met lots of cool people. I went to rallies. Yeah. And he got openly cheated, and dude hasn't mentioned election integrity really much at all since then. And he got cheated again since then.
Yeah.
He's been
in different manner, mind you, in a completely different manner. They did it, mind you, but yeah, I think it's really frustrating. Like I said, it is. And I wish that I knew like what was going on in his head in terms of like strategy. Was he expecting it? Because like on my end, right, we knew we weren't going to win. Not the first time running again. Like we weren't delusional. Look, we were hopeful and optimistic, and we put our best out there, but we're not delusional, right? So part of me thinks Bernie knows the deal. Right? Like he knows. Of course
he does. He's not a moron. He's not an idiot.
He knows. It's more about before 2016, we were not talking about Medicare for all every single day, all over the place. It wasn't, Bernie did that. And
Bernie and lots of activists who have been working up to that point too. Let's not erase it.
No, I understand. He gave it a national platform that it never had before. And that's where I'm saying, where you have to look at this as a big snowball, and everybody has a piece of it. No one person's carrying the whole thing. No one person can do that. Although Nina Turner might be able to do it. We'll see. But no, I mean, these are just regular people, and everybody is just a part of this process. And, I just feel like I'm just doing whatever I can to contribute. That's basically it.
Do you ever feel like you're up against a wall though, with regard to pretty much the entire history of the establishment?
Yeah. I do. But
that's my problem with electoral politics is the system is so far gone that you're never going to get a fair election. I mean, Debbie Wasserman Schultz cheated Tim Canova. I mean, there's significant evidence for that. So, I mean,
and he also wasn't a great candidate. And he also, with the amount of money he had, should have done a lot better than he did. I got the same votes that he did. He had $4 million. I had $400,000. He had an endorsement from Bernie. I had a pandemic. I got his same votes. If I had $4 million, we wouldn't even be having this discussion like this. So,
but you would though, because they would have never let you win. That's the thing.
No, you know what though? People, when it's overwhelming, they can't do it as easily. The problem is that most elections are not overwhelming, and that's what makes it unfair. So instead of having a threshold where you need to get 51%, in theory, you really need more like 70% in order for it to be so convincing that they can't cheat. And that is the sad, twisted reality that we live in. Our elections process is crap. We're basically a fascist oligarchy with this facade of democracy. And I don't expect anything different. And like I said, and this is something, and I'll quote Chris Hedges, we don't fight fascists because we know we're going to win. You fight fascists because they're fascists. And right now, unfortunately, this is the menu of the process that I have in which to do anything. There is no other menu right now. Now, I'm very supportive of other ideas. I am of the opinion we should do everything we can from all different angles and try to, just get what's justice for humanity. But, this is the only way that I feel I'm going to be able to really be effective, specifically where I live, in terms of there are no third parties. I mean, I know you're talking about just electoral politics in general. But unfortunately, that's what we have.
And I do want to clarify too, electoral politics for me, I don't believe on a federal level. I do believe that you can make some small difference locally, but even generally then not on voting for candidates, because at least from what I've seen, even local Democratic Party establishments, and it's all corrupt.
Ours is
ballot measures, and I'm sure yours is.
Ours is there. So bad. Yeah. Ours is so bad. But what I've been doing, what's interesting is, I have to run as a Democrat here. That's just the reality. We are a closed primary place. Our district is so gerrymandered by Debbie that the only way to beat her is that.
Just to interrupt, what do you mean when it's a closed primary?
Okay, so there's several different types of primaries. All states are different. In Florida, the only people that can vote in the Democratic primary have to be registered as Democrats. Okay, mm-hmm. And the same for Republican. And the reality is, most people are no party affiliation in general. Those are the people that make up the bulk. And so to win an election in my district, you have to, really get basically every single Democrat to come out and vote. And that's not that many people relative. And our district is so gerrymandered that you can't win it. I've been calculating this in my mind, for 15 years, trying to figure out how to do it. And the only way to do this, it's very similar to what AOC was facing with Crowley, in the same way the district is. And this is the only way to do it. And so, look, whether or not I would be able to be effective in Congress, I don't know. I can just be me and be true to constituents and do what I'm not even running right now. I don't know why I'm talking like that. But the difference is, how to use that seat, how to really affect change in your community, how to stand up for what's right, how to just, be a decent human being. This is what this is about. But if at a bare minimum, let's say that all we were able to do was get her out, to me, that's a step for mankind. Okay. So that in and of itself, no, seriously.
I get it.
Because,
I hate her.
Exactly. So this is someone, and not only corporate money, but very nefarious corporate money. Mm-hmm. It's not just some corporations and whatever. No, big sugar, big pharma, the military industrial complex, predatory payday lenders,
private prisons.
It's ludicrous. And, so what if the only thing we were able to do was get rid of her? that's kind of a little bit of a win just in and of itself.
Yeah, that's a win if you can do it. I mean, I'm just skeptical about the ability. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Yeah. I know. No. And that's the thing. But here's the thing. What's the option?
She's sitting there with is my favorite thing.
And I do that too. I do that too. So like, you know, I agree it's multiple faceted, but like the only way to get rid of her is this way. And yes, the election is tainted. However, we do have a new SOE, and I'm very happy to say that he is a good guy. I like him. I know, like, we're still dealing with those friggin' machines, unfortunately. That's a state level situation. But I feel infinitely better about our system in Broward than when it was Brenda Snipes and Debbie was running.
So Lord, I mean, when Brenda Tim was Snipes running. Is terrible. God, right. That woman is terrible.
So you have to look at all of those factors, you know, and we actually are in a better way now with that. She was the worst. Brenda was friends with Debbie. I mean, what could go wrong? And Joe is a good guy. That's Joe. What's the title? Supervisor of Election Scott. He's a good guy and wants to do right and cares about election integrity. And I have no reason to think otherwise. So you got to take wins where you get them.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm an Assange activist. I will make wins up if I have to make myself feel better, because there's not a lot of wins in what I do.
Yeah.
I get it. But yeah, I did want to actually ask you, you mentioned earlier that you, criminal justice reform is a big issue for you. And it is for Jesse and I as well. Jesse's interviewed, some people before, and we've just recently interviewed Awkward, who is with 10 Demands for Justice, who's doing great work on kind of the defund movement. So what is your position on the defund movement and really even abolish the police, because that seems to be kind of a hot button topic. People are really irritated by the phrasing and the terminology. Yeah. So where do you stand on that?
Okay. So first of all, I believe abolish ICE, abolish all of that nonsense. Okay. I support everything about defund the police. They should have picked a better name. I'm just saying, for marketing purposes, they would have done better had they done so. I support what their platform is. I support what it does. The only thing I always say about policing is I think it's important to distinguish front end policing from back end policing. So for example, I want rape cases investigated. I want rape kits. I want policing on the back end in terms of investigation. I don't want patrolling on the front end. And so I think the funds that are for that need to be completely reallocated into, God, we need money in our school so bad. Like there's so many things that we need money for. We need to demilitarize the police. Police need to be from the communities that they're servicing. I think we need to take so much responsibility off their plate, and we need to end all that broken windows crap. So I like the idea of policing investigative. And like, if somebody gets killed in front of me, I want to know that I can call the police and someone's going to come and investigate that situation. Right. So we don't not want that. But we don't need them out looking to arrest people. We don't need it profit motive, which it is. That's a big part of the problem. Okay. Is profit motive in corrections and policing is off the charts. Their whole way that they operate, what their incentive structure is. I think we should give them bonuses for closing cases, not finding new ones. So we can have certain aspects of law enforcement without it being patrol-y. I don't know if that explains like where how I feel.
No, I mean, I think that makes sense. I mean, in a general way. I'm a big true crime nerd. So, I have like this weird, kind of conflict within myself where I hate cops. But homicide detectives are, kind of fascinating to me, and that's a cool thing that they do. And, but
don't you want that done if someone killed somebody? I mean, there are so many untested rape kits and so much, at least here. I know that different municipalities are different, but here it's absurd. Okay. So why aren't we solving those things instead of, that's really more my mentality is. So from a criminal justice perspective, there's some crazy people out there that need to be held accountable for some crazy stuff that they do. And I'd like them to some of those people to not be running around. So we do need a sense of that. Okay. But the way it's set up, and we're so past bias training at this point, like, I don't even know what the point of that is at this point, but, yeah, we need to overhaul the whole system.
Yeah. A lot of American policing now has boiled down to token gestures like bias training, or we hear this all
like
the time.
They'll paint a rainbow flag on the side of their cruiser.
Yeah, that's
I mean, I remember seeing one. They like the puzzle piece for autism. I have a child who's autistic, and I'm terrified that she's ever going to have to one day interact with a police officer. But they've got puzzle pieces on their cruiser, so it's fine.
It's scary, and these people are not trained for what they're getting involved in. And also, I also always like to point out that we are a very, very militant and violent people. And when you look at what we do around the world and you see what the destruction, it's almost like, how would we expect it to be any different at home in terms of how we treat our people? So if we're a militarized nation, like we are, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to do that at home. And I mean, not just, in terms of what our priorities are and how we treat people, but literally in terms of what do they do with all that stuff that the military industrial complex makes? It has to go to the police departments. And this is a profit motive situation. So this is not unexpected. And the kind of people that go into policing, okay, are the kind of people that want to get geared up for combat. That's who's seeking these jobs now. It's like this vicious circle of the profession has become this sort of like stormtrooper kind of militant patrolling force. And so the kind of people that are going into law enforcement, that's what they're looking at. Not to mention ex-military that have been fighting in these wars forever and have PTSD that are getting into law enforcement. I mean, it is just a militarized mess. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you change the dynamic of what law enforcement is, okay, and you go back to like, I don't know, I'm like what's the guy's name? I'm thinking of like not Kojak, but like you go back to where it's an investigative type of position and a problem solving position. You will then start to get those people into that field. Serpico? So it's a chicken and an egg thing.
Are you referencing Serpico?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Why? Why?
You said Kojak, and I thought you were going back to that.
Oh, well, era. That's Telly Savalas, but
right.
Yeah.
Serpico was Al Pacino.
Yeah, no, I know. I wasn't sure, but I just meant like where it's not about just bombarding the streets with military stormtroopers, that these are people that actually solve crimes, problem solve, and figure stuff out. And that's what we want in law enforcement. Like that would be what we need. And that's why we don't have crimes being solved, because that's not the kind of people that we're bringing on. We're bringing on stormtroopers to patrol neighborhoods, mm-hmm. right? Like, so I think when you change the nature of the job, you start changing the people that want that job. And I think that's where we need to go.
And I think it's interesting that you compared it, rightfully so, to kind of the military industrial complex and the U.S. imperialism around the world, because it is 100% interconnected. And it's not even just a matter of the weapons that we pass on to the cops. Our police are trained by, IDF. And, like you said, there are a lot of former military who join law enforcement. And it's very much like this cycle of violence. So, I mean, that's kind of a good segue for me to ask you about, kind of these the imperialism of the United States and the things that we're doing around the world. I mean, what do you think that we can do to kind of fight back against this military industrial complex kind of just complete capture of our government?
It's one of those things where I wish there was some sort of answer. Like if we just had a big enough march or protest, we could actually fix this problem. I think this is another one of those things that has to be attacked from so many different angles. And, obviously one of those is electing people that don't take money from the military industrial complex. That's a first step for people. And if, you can easily check that information. But we need to really have like a come to Jesus moment about our place in the world and how we treat other people and other nations. A lot of that is tied to the fossil fuel industry, not all, but a lot of it is. And so, when you start reducing our dependence on those foreign oils and stuff. That is part of it, because we don't do anything obviously out of the kindness of our hearts. Everything has an ulterior motive, whether it's oil or it's, I'm losing my mind. What's the element that they have in Bolivia that lithium? Is it lithium? Yeah. I'm like having a brain, but you know, whatever it is that we're seeking in those places, that we feel the need to have someone in charge that we like. So we have to have all these regime change wars, and why we have to be paying this terrorist unit to fight against this one. And we're like supporting contrary thing. Like, it's ridiculous. And people are becoming more aware of it. And, you know, this is something where Congress needs to take back. Now I think it'll happen, because I know that Bernie had put forward the thing to pull us out of Yemen, but now of course Joe says he's doing that anyway. I don't buy it. Yeah, no, I don't buy it. But we need to get rid of the AUMF, and we need to take the power to do any of this back into the legislative branch and out of the hands of the executive. And that has been what has been plaguing us since 9/11. So, and I'm not saying it was great before that, but before that, there was a little bit more consciousness about what we were doing since that. And then obviously the drone situation has made it just absurd. Thank you, Obama.
Right.
And you know, I'm angriest at him, by the way, sidebar. I really am. I am. I'm angriest at him about a lot of things right now. I have a lot of anger about him right now.
He's an absolute like trash human being. Sorry, but he is. I mean, 100% war criminal, 100% liar, corrupt as fuck.
Yeah.
But he's a moderate Republican now.
Right. And he was charming, and he had a decent singing voice, and he knew some Al Green songs, so everybody swooned, and it was fine. Yeah, I'm
just saying, okay, good. Thank you for letting me vent, because I have a certain amount of anger about that.
Yeah.
You know, we need to have people understand what we are doing in these countries. And that, unfortunately, the fourth estate, which is basically dead.
That was my next question.
Okay, well, they don't show it. No. We don't see it. So like back when it was Vietnam, you know, you saw caskets, you saw these caskets coming back. And there was you also had on the ground field reporting, which W got rid of. And so nobody sees anything. If people were able to watch this, like, I'd love there to be a 24/7 drone bomb channel. Like, I think there should be little cameras on the drones. It should be 24/7. And we should be watching all these little children running for cover with their families with bombs going off all around them. Well, and if we did
that exists. If you've watched an interview with Edward Snowden, or if you've read his book or anything written by him, he explains that when he was working as a contractor for the CIA, that NSA, that he could, if he wanted to, just for entertainment's sake, log into a live drone feed from anywhere around the world. And you know, mostly he said it was just drones hovering over people and watching their everyday activities. But of course we know that when they strike, it's funeral parties and wedding parties and buses full of children. So
we've bombed the same Doctors Without Border hospital twice.
Mm-hmm.
A Nobel Peace Prize winner. A Nobel Peace Prize winner bombed a Nobel Peace Prize winner. It's like, you can't write that shit. It's ridiculous.
Same
it's so ridiculous.
And to not find that intentional is just, you know, that's intentional. So we did that twice. And that was Eva Bartlett did a report on that.
Oh, I love her.
Great. Yeah. She I can't remember when this was, but it came from like her. Like, this is something from somebody who was reporting, who was at said Doctors Without Border hospital.
She lives in Syria, like has for a long time.
I'm just saying. So like, this is where you see most people don't access that information. That's the problem. If we had 24/7 on mainstream media of this stuff, this would have ended a long time ago.
Yes, agreed, 100%. And that's that was going to be like kind of my next segue into a different topic of conversation, which is the abysmal state of the media in this country. The United States is by far the most propagandized country on earth. I don't think that anybody can debate that. It's much more covert propaganda. It's not as in your face, and it's not as kind of obvious, but it is, mainstream media is 100% state propaganda. And I say that because they're owned by corporations, and corporations own our government. And that is, the state of our media. We do not have legitimate mainstream media in this country. And then even our independent media, or, those that claim to be independent media, are also, it's like this slide into, they start off good, and then they, TYT, sorry if you like TYT, but they're a huge example of that.
Yeah. Well, they took big money. Once
they took
that's the defining factor. That's the defining factor right there. That's when you lose it.
Yeah. But I mean, what do you, because to me, being a free speech activist, free press activist, Assange activist, to me, the biggest issue that we face is dealing with the battle for narrative control, because it dominates every other issue that we face. I mean, so much of the reason why we don't have Medicare for all in this country is because big pharma and insurance companies spent billions of dollars on propaganda to misinform the American people about what Medicare for all is, what it does, how it works. And that's a huge part of the reason why we don't have Medicare for all in this country. I mean, I'm going to forget his name, Wendell Scott or Wendell something. There's a guy who used to work for the insurance companies, who's now a whistleblower, who came forward and said, look, this is what we used to do. We invented this propaganda and, this misinformation to lie to the American people about what Medicare for all is. And it was effective. And this is what we did. And so it's not like we don't know that that's happening. So, moving forward, we're seeing now it's tremendous how bad it's getting. The censorship is unbelievable. Facebook just shut down the entire country of Australia. I mean, just like, nope, you don't get to have any news, it's crazy. And we have progressive leaders like AOC leading the charge for more censorship. So, what's your take on that? Because I know you're an Assange supporter. You've been very consistent on that. I have on many occasions told you I'm grateful to you for that, because I know it's difficult to be a candidate trying to run for office and, publicly supporting Julian Assange. It is kind of a difficult issue. But what do you think, moving forward? Biden's no friend of free speech. So what do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm kind of a free speech absolutist. Barring somebody calling for the immediate harm or danger to somebody else, I pretty much think everything should just let it fly. So I also started out as a journalist. My background is in journalism. I take that very seriously. I grew up thinking like that. I grew up thinking people like Edward R. Murrow and people that like learning about that and studying that and caring about that. And I still think that even when I was an adult, but younger, we still had it to some extent. Even when you had people like Dan Rather on TV, whatever he morphed into. Dan. But these were people that were journalists. Okay. Like earlier on, these were in the field reporters. And a lot of times back then, the people reporting were reporting their own stories. Like they actually did the investigative work. So I do remember that in my lifetime. And we have really fallen far. A lot of that is Bill Clinton and the 96 Telecommunications Act, which has basically led us to where we are now. And it is a corporatized propaganda, which is hence why I say that we're a fascist oligarchy. Because one of the things about fascism is control of the information and no free information. And we lost that a long time ago. It started really getting bad in 96. And the only way that I know of to combat the bad information is with the right information. That's not censorship. So I'm never going to support that concept. As far as like Facebook and those need to be nationalized as public utilities at this point. And they should be subjected to the First Amendment, because this is not, yes, it's a private business, but only because they've been paying off Congress for so many years to keep it a private business. And we don't enforce monopoly laws in this country. So the reason that they are a private business is shady to begin with. They shouldn't be anymore. Zuckerberg should take his billions of dollars and just go home and let this at this point be a nationalized utility. I don't know the solution to dealing with the corporate propaganda, but I will say that things like what you're doing and what we're doing, and the more amount of like independent sources that are popping up, that's that many more people that are being reached by better information. So for your platform might have some overlap with our platform, but there's going to be a ton of people that'll now check us out. And then, that, and vice versa. Like that's how this works. Like we keep it going. And so we're just got to keep spreading the right information and combat the wrong information. But it is hard. It's like, you try not to get defeatist about it. I do the best I can to keep people educated. I can say that I do feel very, proud about the fact that personally, I know I've educated so many people, like just friends, people, like just that I know that I've said, okay, this is not how this really works. This is how this works. And more people are getting aware. I do believe that. And I do think that more people are recognizing the corporatism of this country and starting to see it. And most important is that those are mostly the younger people are starting to see it. And younger people are also less likely to use mainstream media. So, because like I know just from the campaigning perspective, reaching your boomers is a completely different animal than reaching your your millennials. They're totally different. So younger people don't really watch it as much. Look at what's the age audience of CNN or MSNBC, and they're dying off. They really are.
It's like two or three.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's part of what's fueling this crackdown on independent media. I mean, we just saw recently a crap ton of channels got demonetized all at one time. Nico, Convo Couch, Franco, just a ton of people all in one swoop got demonetized. And I think we had I'm not gonna remember his name, but there was a guy who went on CNN and literally was saying, these independent channels on like YouTube and stuff, they have more viewers than CNN does during the daytime. And we got to bring people back into the mainstream. And no, dude, we don't. You're lying to us. Like CNN is lying to you all the time, daily. Like every once in a while they'll throw in like a little tidbit of truth, but for the most part, it's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't it be different if YouTube was nationalized? Like that's that we need to get rid of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, and then we need to nationalize these outlets. But what we're dealing with is Google and Facebook basically owning everything. And that is where the government is supposed to step in and regulate that stuff so that can't be the case. Obviously, we're not seeing that as our government is on the take from said corporations. And so there we go.
Yeah. And you have Amazon running the server for the CIA.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on Jeff Bezos, that POS.
But what terrifies me a little bit just right now is it seems like, like the tech giants are very much in line with the Democratic Party. Like that seems to be the Democratic Party's kind of wheelhouse. And so, to me, free speech was always a leftist issue. I mean, it used to be. It for whatever reason, somehow, we now have people who proclaim to be on the left fighting against free speech and fighting for more censorship. And that's really weird to me to watch.
I think it's snowflakery run amok. We're so, I like to say overwoke, to the point where you have this sort of overwoke left that is kowtowing and appealing to these sort of like very comfortable, very white, very academic, elitist sort of group of people. I am a head vision Karen, whoever your Karen is. And when you're appealing to that crowd, and that's where your donors come from, that's where those are your voters. And so you appeal to those people by taking a line on all their political correct virtue signaling crap that they're into. And I think this is what we're seeing as the end result, because it's not about principle. None of them are talking about principle, which is why I do my best to bring it back to, the content is not the issue. They could say whatever they want. I didn't even agree with deplatforming Alex Jones. I don't agree with deplatforming anybody. So unless somebody's calling for violence, like immediate, violent, which is sort of like the yelling fire in a crowded theater. Like you have to have
that.
Short of that, I'm pretty absolutist about free speech. So we need to do everything we can to reclaim that. We're losing it. We've lost it a lot. We lost a lot through the Patriot Act. Like don't Democracy is it's not a spectator sport.
No, it's not. And I would even go back farther than 1996 with regard to when the media really stopped having access to what was happening foreign policy wise. I would go back to the first Gulf War when essentially there wasn't the notion or even the practice of embedding journalists yet, but so many journalists, or even all of them, weren't let on the ground to cover what was happening in that war. And even though it was a war that lasted, I believe 100 hours, something like that, it was over and done with the snap of a finger. There were mass atrocities, war crimes committed by the U.S. against Iraq in that war, and I think that set the standard post Vietnam, because in Vietnam, as you said earlier, we were seeing what was happening. We were seeing
they learned a lot from Vietnam.
Right. Yes, they did. They got sharp, and that was sort of the creeping of the, we're not going to let you cover things and all the bad stuff we're doing in other places. But the complete corporatization of the media hadn't completely happened. It was just sort of like the government was creating rules to block the media and the reporters and keep them out. But I don't think that it was based on just corporate propaganda talking points at that point yet.
No, I think you're right. That's been a slow progression, I think. Over time.
I think there was a corporate and or profit motive to it, but it was also, I would even argue more so, there was a propagandistic motive to it, to sort of censor and cleanse what people were seeing and make it seem like, I'm talking about the first Gulf War here, make it seem like this heroic effort on the part of the U.S. and its so-called allies. And I think that was, a lesson gleaned from the, what you might call the Vietnam syndrome as far as American media goes.
Well, and so much of I remember reading an interview that you gave, or maybe it was your Ballotpedia or something, where you said that one of the most influential books for you was Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. And you were talking about how, people don't understand their own history. And I think that that's something that we've been contending with since the dawn of time. I mean, the people who win write the history, and it's always skewed in their favor. And we've talked to, Native American historians about how the history of this country is completely whitewashed, and it's completely, just fed through this filter of, U.S. exceptionalism. And, that's something to me, that's why, the free speech and free press and free Assange thing is such a big deal, because it really does inform everything else that we have to contend with. I mean, we can't fight for anything else unless we can actually have a free press where we can put information out and explain our ideas and positions and have conversations about things that we disagree on and all of that. I mean, that's the only way we can fight for things.
Yeah, this is the importance I don't think people understand about the Assange case. This is something I've been saying since the beginning, and it's really irrelevant what you think of him or what you think of what he said, or that's completely irrelevant. The fact that somebody who is not from this country, not a citizen of this country, can be charged under the Espionage Act, first of all, is ludicrous. Like, I can't even wrap my brain around how that hasn't just been thrown out on its just de facto ridiculous. Yeah. But I don't think people understand the gravity of the situation. And I've been saying this for 8 years. The minute that we do that, the minute that we prosecute Julian Assange, like we get him here and we do that, it is the end of the First Amendment. I cannot stress this enough to people. And I say it, and I'm not being hyperbolic. Like, that's a big
It sounds very dramatic. I know.
I say it all the time. And I know. know, it sounds very dramatic. And I'm not meaning in the end of the First Amendment in a sense that everybody's now going to like have to be forced religion, whatever that is. I mean, not all elements of the First Amendment are necessarily coming down, but the press and the ability to put out accurate information, to be able to be prosecuted for that this is like communist China stuff, right? Like this is what we think. This is what I think of when I think of places like North Korea, right? Like this is not, and people do not understand. And a big part of that is it doesn't get covered. And we know that Assange doesn't get covered by mainstream media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to tell you though, is I actually have started, we're planning a Pardon Assange live stream telethon and trying to get everybody in. How do you know?
I tweeted you about it, sister. I said, I was like, hey, I saw this on your show and I'll help you. I'll get you some stickers if you need them.
I'm so sorry. I don't do my Twitter.
I didn't. Yeah. I just, yeah. I will totally help you. I can I mean, listen, I don't have a ton of pull. I'm not like super cool. Like I can't, but I have, I can try. Like I can help.
The more the merrier.
It is pretty true. Like I can't get you. Well, I mean, she does follow me, but like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
But whoever, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And just to promote and just put it out there. But I mean, my dream would be if everybody who does live streaming, because not everybody does live streams, like you guys don't do live stream, but like for everyone who does live, to simultaneously be live streaming at the same time, sort of like the muscular dystrophy thing used to be. It has to be on all the stations, right? Like that was the thing. And I really think if we get everybody to start flooding Joe Biden's office and the DOJ and the Attorney General's office, just constantly be calling the switchboard, constantly flooding.
Okay, so feel free to join my letter writing campaign. I'm going to go ahead and just plug that real quick because we've been writing to Joe Biden specifically for I think 3 weeks now.
Okay.
We also added the last 2 weeks, we sent letters to Julian Assange because he's not in a great place. He's freezing cold, using books to insulate his window. So yeah, we wrote to Julian Assange too. But the hearings, for Merrick Garland, who is probably going to be the next AG, are Monday and Tuesday. So this Monday we are going to, I'm going to write multiple letters. But I would love nothing more than for him to be greeted in his first week of office with a mountain of free Assange letters. You know, and listen, letters are letters. Is it going to make a huge difference? Probably not. But
you mean like snail mail?
Yes, because here's the thing I love about snail mail is even if Merrick Garland or Joe Biden doesn't see these, an intern opens them. And even if we can get, you know, some interns to be like, what the hell? Like, why are we prosecuting a journalist or, you know, whatever? Like, it's such an easy thing for people to do. Writing a letter takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes, throw it in an envelope, stamp, mailbox, done. Like, there you go. You just help the Assange a little bit. I mean, it's one of those small little things you can do.
If we can set something up, I mean, I'd like to do something like the third weekend in March or something like that. And my goal would be you plan it. And if we get lucky and somebody comes in and says, you know what, we're just going to drop this Julian Assange thing, I would be more than happy to cancel said plans. Like,
no,
you know,
don't cancel it. Then we can just have a party. Like that's what we did.
Well,
that's what we did in DC. Yeah,
that's fine too. But you know, obviously, right. So I think what we should do is plan it. We already have a couple of people that Jordan Sheraton wants to come, and like he said, he would like. There's a few people that we have. I'll ask Nina. And Marianne Williamson.
She hasn't been super vocal on Julian Assange, so.
Nina?
Yeah, she's I'm not a big fan of hers on Assange because she never speaks about it, and then she had Tulsi on to discuss Tulsi's amazing legislation. I don't give a fuck what you think about Tulsi, so don't even come for me. I don't care. Her legislation was amazing. Yeah, so she had her on to talk about that legislation, which, listen, I'm glad that she did that. Thank you, Nina Turner, for having Tulsi on to discuss that legislation. But she still gives wishy-washy answers, like, you know, you don't have to agree with what he did. And I hate that, you know, kind of like tiptoeing around it. And it just drives me nuts because he did the right thing. And so I get that she's, you know, running for office and whatever.
I don't think it's that, though, because she's always been, look, she didn't stop saying one way or another when she started running for office. She's always been, the bottom line is that's not one of her big issues. That's not one of the things that is what she's worrying about. That's not one of her priorities. And I'm not saying that it isn't a priority and that she wouldn't care. But as somebody who is activist and in the streets and doing stuff, we do triage, we do prioritize, and what her main issues are not that. So I'm not going to say,
for sure, but that's okay. I'm going to push back on you a little bit on that because I get this a lot. Well, you just expect them to make it their number. I don't expect her to make it her number one issue, but it doesn't take much for her to come out and make a strong statement in defense of Julian Assange and press freedom. And I haven't seen that from her. And that's disappointing. You know, like I'm not asking her to make it her issue.
I wonder, something. Have people asked?
Yes.
I'm just curious.
Oh, are you kidding? Girl, you haven't been following me very long on Twitter. I ask everybody.
Do Twitter.
I know, but listen, this is like no joke. I spam people on Twitter all the time. I've gone after Bernie Sanders. I've gone after Nina Turner. I've gone after AOC, Ilhan Omar. I go after Republicans. I go after everybody. We write letters. We call their offices, both in DC and in their hometowns. Like, this is no joke. Like, I've been asking these people for 2 years to speak on this shit since he got arrested, and they haven't said anything. I mean, Nina Turner has said some, like I said, some wishy-washy things. But Bernie Sanders, absolutely dead silent. No. AOC, I have concerns. Fuck your concerns. You know, you know, these are supposed to be our progressive. AOC. I have concerns about AOC too, but you know, these progressive leaders are 100% failing on this issue, and it's unacceptable. Period.
It's unfortunate that we see it as it's sort of a progressive thing. It really isn't a thing. You know, I would expect even people that are like your libertarians and on the right, people that are in Congress, your Rand Pauls of the world, and those people to care. These are people that are supposed to fight for our Constitution.
Rand Paul's kind of on it. Thomas Massey's very good on it. Matt Gaetz
I would think so. You're going to get the constitutional people, right? Mm-hmm. So it shouldn't even be like, you know, on the shoulders.
It's not a partisan issue.
No,
it's not a partisan issue.
No, it isn't. It's not at all a partisan issue. And that's one of, like, I have Republican friends that are very pro First Amendment, you know, like this is a big deal. I think a lot of people, like the general people, not the political people, really don't know and understand what's going on with Julian Assange. They don't know because the media doesn't really cover it. You know what? Maybe I'll when I get a free moment, I'll text Nina and just see if I can.
But that to me is what makes it all the more important that somebody like Nina Turner, who has a massive following, says something, or Bernie Sanders. I mean, it would make people are like, oh, he can't save Assange all by himself. Of fucking course not. But he has millions of people that listen to everything that he says.
Yeah.
If he came out and made a strong statement, and you know, he doesn't even have to do it in a way that's like in defense of Julian Assange. He can fall back and hide behind Obama. Obama wouldn't prosecute Julian Assange, so hide behind that if you have to. You know, Barack Obama wouldn't do it, so we know we just shouldn't do this. It's you know, it's detrimental to the First Amendment. If he can even put out like kind of it would piss me off. It would be a cowardly statement, but it would be fucking something. I mean, the First Amendment is being destroyed in broad daylight right now, and they're saying nothing, and it's not okay.
Well, look, I mentioned Julian Assange, I think pretty much every time I am live.
No, you have been extremely consistent. Yeah, you have been extremely consistent. I've told you before, I'm very grateful to you for doing that. Christina Livio, who's also in Florida, you may know her.
Yeah, of course. I know Christine.
Yeah, she came to our DC events. She was the only candidate who showed up. Like, she came and she spoke and she was there. And she, you know, I told her, I don't trust you as like a politician, or, you know, as a, not even a politician, but as somebody running for office. I don't trust any of those people. I mean, it's not personal. I just don't. I like her as a person, but you know, people ask me all the time, is any politician ever going to be good enough for you? Is any candidate ever going to be good enough for you? No. And they shouldn't be for you either. They should be, you know, criticized and scrutinized, and you should be like watching them like a hawk, because
you shouldn't even have to be. See, this is the thing that I always say when you, like you said, how effective can you be? And when I talk to people, it isn't about how effective you are. It's about how well you're representing your constituents and how transparent you're being with them with what you're doing. So, for example, you're going in to vote on something and you know that your constituents want you to vote A, but you go in there and you now are bombarded with a whole bunch of additional stuff that was thrown on there that your constituents don't know about, but you know is not what they would want in their best interest. I understand going against what they thought they wanted. Tell them why. Explain why. I remember a few years ago, I heard somebody saying that lobbyists should wear body cams. And I thought, that's absurd. No, they shouldn't. Paul, congressmen should wear body cams. Lobbyists work for private organizations. They're not my employees. They can do whatever they want. That's not my concern. My concern is what my representative is doing in terms of dealing with those lobbyists. I also don't have a problem with lobbyists. I actually went to law school to be one. I wanted a lobby for like the Innocence Project. You know, I kept thinking, okay, all the big corporations have lobbyists. We need nonprofit lobbyists. Lobbyists are important. They serve a purpose. They're experts in certain things and certain places and writing legislation, and that's fine. The problem is that they should not have a revolving door with our government, and we shouldn't be accepting money. And so it isn't their existence that's the problem. And the issue with Congress people isn't that they're not always effective. It's that they're not transparent. And that's what you expect from your employee. An employee isn't always going to do everything perfect all the time, but you want to know that you can at least trust them, that when they mess up, they'll acknowledge it, they'll compensate for it, they'll fix it, they'll work on it. I mean, that's all we want. Like, that's all I want from a representative. I don't mind someone who can't always get what we want. We can't always get what we want, but I want to know that that's what they're fighting for, and that's what they're trying to do, and that they're being honest about what they're doing, and they're not taking money from nefarious sources. So I think there is a way. It just requires us to jump through so many hoops to really see who these people are. And as really, obviously the first step is that they don't take corporate money. But you're never going to agree with people all the time. It's never going to happen. And the truth is, nobody should be there so long that they should have to consistently be good for years and years and years and years, because they shouldn't even be there that long. So if everybody just went through, they did their term of service, they served their communities. And, I think of, okay, this time it's a teacher that's in there, and next time it's one of our iron workers, or, and yes, there has to be a certain amount of savvy to understand some of the legislative stuff. There does. It can't just be anybody that just
it's not savvy. It's just actually reading.
Well, okay, but not everybody is the same at reading comprehension. Not everybody understands. Those things are not written simply. Okay, they really aren't.
I think they are. They're just written tediously.
Okay, but how many people want to sit and do that, or will do that?
Right.
Well, if that's your job and that's what you're voting on, then
yeah, but they don't read anything. None of them read the Patriot Act when that went through.
They just passed like a huge 5,000-page bill that every one of them admitted straight up they didn't read.
Yeah, so that's the thing. They're not reading it, but we would ideally like that. I would like my representative to read and understand legislation. I think part of their job is educating us what that is.
Right.
Your job is to come back from Washington and talk to your constituents and say, this is what's on the table. What do you guys think? In theory. I mean, now it would obviously be more of an online thing, but I think all votes should be running tabs. I think my representative should have a running roster on all the legislation that we should be able to put in what we want them to do. So for me, it's not necessarily effectiveness that's as important as transparency. And I think that when people are just real with us, that's what we're really craving.
Yeah, I want that. But also, I want somebody, and I've said this before, the whole point of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley to a lesser degree. She was, kind of a Warren, Hillary Clinton supporter. I didn't really expect much from her. But, the whole point was that they were going to go in and challenge the Democratic establishment. That was the point. They haven't done that. Like, I want somebody who's going to go in there and flip some fucking tables. Go in there and make some noise. Be loud. Fight for people. Fight for the things that you claim to stand for. Like, I'm just so tired of, electing these people based on the rhetoric that they throw at you when they want your vote, and then the minute they get elected, they start walking all that stuff back and acquiescing and kind of capitulating to corruption. That people are tired of that shit. Like, that's not going to stand for much longer. That's why to me that's why I don't believe in electoral politics. I have not yet seen anybody get elected and then go in there and do the things that they actually claim that they were going to do. I mean, AOC isn't standing up to Nancy Pelosi at all.
No, and I don't know that was ever her thought that she would ever need to do that. I think that we looked at a lot of these progressives and saw where they stood on the policies, and the fact that they didn't take corporate money, both are important issues. And just assume that these are people that are going to be capable of going in and doing that. And just because you agree with someone on the policies doesn't make them necessarily a real leader. Doesn't make them the kind of person that's going to really rally together the small minority of people that you have and make a big enough stink, even when you're going to lose. That takes a certain type of person on top of also being on our team as far as policy goes. I don't know that any of them are that person. I don't, I haven't seen it. And it's not also hard for me to believe that there are people that are sitting there and no, they're not doing what you want them to do right now. But as more and more progressives can get in there and they have more and more numbers behind them, I do think that more people will start having more of a comfort level of doing stuff. Not everybody wants to be 1 in 5 people standing against, 430 others. Not everybody is willing to do that. And
well, then my pushback against that would be then they shouldn't be there.
Well, that's true. But the thing is that this is a role that has many different facets to it. You know, you're going to have some people that are much more policy oriented. You're going to have some people that are much more that better at constituent services and really helping the people that live in their district with those things. There are so many different roles that a congressperson has. So not everybody that gets in, even if they're good on policy, is necessarily somebody who's going to want to fight the machine. Some people are going to sit there. They're going to advocate for what they believe in. You know, it's not, I don't think people also understand what's involved until they get there. I think that's a big part of it, and really understanding.
That's kind of my whole point, is that in particular, AOC, she very specifically said, you know, you got to bring the ruckus to the Democratic Party. You got to push them. You have to put pressure on them. And then she doesn't do that. And so, I mean, it goes back to that transparency piece. Don't tell people that this is what you're going to do when you need their vote. And then when they vote for you, you're not doing the thing that you promised you would do. That's bad. Like, don't do that.
Look, I can't say why she's done it. I haven't met Alex. I don't know. I do see that she has career ambition. I think that that is an element of it for her. I can't speak as to the other people.
That's putting
I
it mildly.
Well, okay. So when that's one of your goals, so I always said from when I was running, there's two things you need to look for someone in a representative. One, no corporate money. And two, is this a career for them, or do they see it as a term of service? When you have someone that doesn't take corporate money and truly sees this as a term of service, that's a completely different animal. That's somebody that doesn't need to make friends and doesn't need to get along well with others because they don't have any intention of staying there for very long. So there are those things to consider. And I also think with her, I mean, she's really young. You know, to me, she's young enough to be my kid. And I think about where my head was at where she is and stuff. And so I just think that not everybody gets it the same way. And I think that she really does have good intentions. I think she does care about the right policies. I do think that. And I think that she is balancing what she's going to want to do with her life in that mix. And it makes it hard to do.
So just to bounce off of that, saying that you really don't know what it's like until you get there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree with that because I haven't been there, and I'm sure that the pressures from all sides are enormous. But does that to you make you feel like you're being subsumed into a system that's going to corrupt you in some way? Sort of like policing is a corrupt institution. You may enter it as a rookie with, you know,
best intentions.
The best intentions, to, you know, save society or whatever. But eventually you end up getting corrupted by that system because the totality of it is just so overwhelming. And I feel like that's a microcosm of the larger picture of American government. And I'm wondering how you feel about that. You know, if you think that, you know, if you get into Congress.
Yeah, because I get what you say, you know, it's not a career for me. It's not a job. But I also think that once you get there, how hard is it going to be to, you know, fend off all of that pressure that Jesse was just saying? Like, that's, to me, that seems like a huge undertaking.
Well, it's only pressure if your goal is to stay in that job. You know, it's only pressure if you're worried about what pressure would it be on someone like me if my goal.
They could say, we're not going to give you this money for your district unless you go along with this on this thing.
Okay. And then I'm going to come home and I'm going to tell my district that, and I'm going to find out, do you think we should go along with this thing? So, you know, it's again, to me, it comes back to transparency. If somebody's holding that over me, I'm going to put that out there. I'm going to say, look, I know we want this, but this is what they're doing. Let me know. What do you guys think? Like, I mean, that's what we need to do. You're not going to solve the problem, but what you need to do is bring your constituents into the solution, you know, like because if someone ever did that to me, like, can you imagine if a congressperson said that, came out and told their district, look, this is what's going on. Again, this goes back to body cams. Let's see what's going on there. Put some little body cameras in their little committee meetings. Let's see what's going on there.
Oh, yes. I mean, they know everything about us. The NSA is spying on every single one of us right now. They have all of our emails, all of our text messages, all of our phone calls. They track what we shop and what we wear and what we eat. And they have, just complete free for all. We have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. Yeah. We have no idea what kind of deals are being made. And it should be the complete opposite.
I always tell people that. I always tell people that what other job would you have where you would have, what other business where you would have an employee, okay, that you're paying, but then is taking money from someone else to work against you. They have health insurance. You don't have health insurance, and they don't tell you what they're doing, and they give themselves a raise. In what universe does this happen? Right. And so I really come at this from the perspective, like I said to you before, these are our employees. I can't tell you what I would or wouldn't do, in terms of when you're presented with this, other than just be transparent about what's going on and be a whistleblower and be like, this is what's going on here. I can't fathom a universe where I don't care about money and I don't need this job. So I don't understand. So nobody has any control or power. Like there's nothing that like I can't be bought because I don't need money. So that's the thing. And I definitely don't want
everybody power. Has a price.
Yes. If somebody were to kidnap my children and hold guns to their heads, I'm sure I would do all sorts of things. But I just mean in general, like, again, this is just me. I can't talk to anybody else, what other people do. My goal is to get her out, train young people to get in and just do the best we can do to try to get the corporate money out of our system. And that's it. That's all I'm trying to do. I don't know how effective I would be because I don't kowtow, I don't bend a knee, and I don't give a rat's ass about Nancy Pelosi. So she's not my mama bear. I don't have interest in her nonsense. I find her one of the biggest disappointments in my life as a woman. I remember feeling very excited when we were going to have a first female speaker of the House. And so she sucks ass as far as I'm concerned. I have no desire to be friends. I have no desire to have fancy appointments or do anything. I'm just there to be a voice for my constituents, serve my community, and do as best I can to get the corporate money out. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
and that's anathema to Congress at this point.
I mean, you will be like a unicorn.
And that's fine. And I welcome that. And if that encourages other people and other campaigns to run service-oriented campaigns, and good. And that's what I said, like, when you said, how do you think you'll be effective? I probably wouldn't be very effective, but I'll be loud and I'll be fierce and I don't lie.
See, to me, that is being effective. Like that's what I want. That's
what I'm saying. It's effective as a platform, but not necessarily effective in terms of legislation. Okay.
Well, so listen, in the current system, I don't know that anybody can be effective on legislation. It is a disaster. There's no way that in this current system, we're going to get any of the things that we want. It's just not built that way. We have let it go so bad, and corporations have complete control, and there's no way that we're going to, I mean, that's just, so to me, I want somebody to go in there and, throw up both their middle fingers and start calling all of them out and start exposing all of the bullshit, because that's how we get people ready for, organizing outside the system, a legitimate, revolution, nonviolent, hopefully. But I mean,
you know what? I wouldn't at this point. First of all, power concedes nothing, and no revolutions have ever occurred nonviolently.
Yeah.
So that being said, and being a person of history, I don't think that's the way it's going to go.
No.
I knew, and I remember saying in 2016 that Donald Trump is going to facilitate the revolution. And I am thankful for that. I was thankful for that while it was even happening. I have a lot of issues with the Democratic Party. I have a lot of issues with everybody, actually. It's a problem. I'm not a people-y person. I'm just a regular person, just trying to help, just trying to do the right thing. That's it. And if that resonates with people, and it's funny, I'm not even running. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are you going? Have you made a decision on whether you're going to run again? Or?
No, for us, it's going to be a decision really almost a coalition decision based on the people that I work with, what my partner thinks. We need to have a pretty good path. We need to have a strategy. Like there's a lot of things that need to be in play because like I said, the top-down approach taken by most people think, I want that job. I want to be a congressperson. I'm going to run for that job. And if that one's not available, I'll move somewhere where I can get that job. That's the job I want. That's a top-down approach. And then I just have to sell myself to all the voters and put that out there. I think that
like
when
Hillary
you come
Clinton.
Yes. Like Hillary Clinton, like Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Like anybody that you cram down people's throats that they clearly don't want.
Hillary Clinton moving to New York and then becoming a senator of New York.
This is what I'm saying. That's this top-down thing. When you come up from a position of really representing your community or the organizations in your community, and you know your community and you're in your community, that's the bottom up, right? That's sort of the approach that I like. It's like this organic thing. And when that feels right, then we'll know. I mean, and if we were to do it, we wouldn't even say until probably August. There's different strategies. Some candidates do now. It's really early. They need to start raising money. Like every district is different. Every campaign is different. So strategies are different. For us, there is absolutely zero benefit to me doing anything earlier than I absolutely have to. There just isn't, because the name recognition factor is something we're already doing just anyway. So there's no benefit other than to all of a sudden have people all over me. And it's intrusive, I tell you. It's extremely intrusive.
I can only imagine.
And your whole family feels it. And so there's no benefit to me doing it, but we'll decide sometime over the summer, and then we'll go from there. But if I think that it's viable, and if I think that that's what's in the best interest, where I'm going to best be serving, then I'd be willing to do it. And I've always looked at it that way. This was never a job I wanted. I wish I had a representative that was doing her job. If I did, I'd be happy with that, and I wouldn't be in this position, you know? So, yeah, I don't know if I answered you.
Was there a sort of breaking point for you when you decided, I want to go after this?
You know, like I said, I've always followed. And really in 2018, when Alex beat Joe Crowley, was the first time that it ever really even seemed feasible to me for somebody to be able to do that without corporate money. And in a situation that's similar to mine, where you have a very sitting incumbent who's very entrenched. And so that was sort of I thought, okay, so this is somewhat doable. And then my partner just basically put it out there and said, let's do this. You know, I finally had somebody who was willing to be a team, because daunting is what would happen if you were really doing it alone. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I've always been in a partnership doing this. And by the way, that's separate from my husband. I've introduced my partner, and I'm like, no, that's not my husband. It's a separate person.
Right. What do you mean by partner?
My business partner.
As far as your campaigning goes.
Oh, we did everything as a team. This was never a situation, like I said, where I said, I want that job, I'm going to go hire me a campaign manager. And we're no, this was a decision that we both made, that we thought would be something that we could do. We could make a difference. We could build some good coalitions down here, which we did. And it was just something we thought would be, you know, a really good thing to do for our community and give people a better option. And so we did it. So he and I have always been doing this together from the beginning. Like I said, it wasn't, I wanted to run and I hired him. We have been doing this together. He, and I are very, very similar in our beliefs. A lot of people think he's like the male version of me. And so if you watch my live, he's sitting right next to me when we do our live. So I do my live stream with.
What's his name, by the way?
Peter Hager.
Okay. Just for viewers who might not know.
Yeah. Peter Hager. He's and now if people watch the live stream, that's who's with me. So he was always the behind the scenes person. Like we were always a team. I'm the demographic that it just requires to do it, and I'm capable of doing it. He could too. Like this could have easily, when we first started talking, been him running and me helping him, just based on what we're wanting to do, progressive values, and just really do. But he's not from here. He's not Jewish. He's not the age demographic, unfortunately, the old people like here. Mm-hmm. And it's strategy. You know, if you live in Miami-Dade, you have a better chance of winning if you have a Latino surname. That's just the way it is. And in Broward, it's Jewish. That's who a lot of our big voters are in this district. And so it is a reality. And that was also something that Tim had going against him, not being from here and not having the right demographic. I'm a second generation native Jew to this district. My connections are in a lot of cases deeper into the Jewish community than Debbie's could ever be. She's not from here. Her JCC is my JCC. A lot of the people that support her are comfortable with her because it is comfortable. She's such a nice girl. That Debbie, she's such a nice girl. That is who our voters are here that come out and vote in a primary. That's the other thing. We're not dealing with a general election when everybody comes out. We are only dealing with a very small segment of Democrats. And a lot of them are those people. And those people are not going to be comfortable with just anybody.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that they're so stuck?
That's a big question.
That's a huge why.
Well,
isn't that really any demographic? Every demographic is like that.
I'm not asking you to give your or to give an overall analysis of it, but like, what's your interpretation of that? What's your assessment of that?
There's a comfort factor. There's a comfort factor with people that are like you. I think most demographics do that. For me, and this is growing up as someone who grew up Jewish in a very I grew up in the second largest Jewish ghetto per capita than anywhere outside of Brooklyn at the time. So to me, everyone was Jewish. I knew that wasn't the case. I wasn't like oblivious, and I knew that. And I went to the University of Colorado, and I certainly was not looking for, to go to like the yeshiva or anything. But I grew up, everybody was Jewish, and it's a very insulated community. Jewish people tend to marry Jewish people. And this was just what I'm telling you, my growing up, not how I feel now. And it just was always like that. And there was always this fear-based, and we could at another time, I can't tonight go into the Israel discussion because that's a big issue.
I wanted to ask you about that, actually.
Yeah, that's
we'll have you back. We'll have you back because that is big.
Many years of deprogramming on my part, and that's still very hard for me when you're raised by people. And this is the one way that I feel like I can almost relate to the generational trauma in the Black community, only from this perspective, is how you raise your kids with your own fears. So my grandparents were post-Holocaust Jews who saw a lot of their family in Europe not make it. So a very fear-based, insular, we have to stay together, we have to protect, we have to have representation, we have to, I was raised in that, very Zionist, very pro-Israel, again, based on what could happen if we don't have Israel, what could happen? Look what happened. Like, so it takes a few generations. Like I said, it took me a while to sort of deprogram and really get clear in my head about Israel. But that fear-based mentality is still the generation that's our primary voters.
Right.
And that is when I say a comfort level, I mean it. You need to be able to go and kibitz at the bagel social with these people and have them be very comfortable with you, or they're not going to vote for you. And the policy is not the issue, especially for people that already have Medicare and are very comfortable. Okay. So it's all comfort. It's not policy. It's all emotion. And you need to you need to relate to them. And I relate to the bubbies. I had a bubby, loved my bubby. Like, I get it. And so that puts me in a very unique position that a lot of people aren't in. Yeah. So that's, I mean, I don't know if I answered your question,
no,
but
you did. And I think that a lot of our politics is really fear-based. I think that a lot of people vote based on fear, and they, they stick in their little team and they don't want to go outside their team. They don't want to listen to anybody who has differing opinions. It's like, we got to stick in our bubble, and it's very emotion driven. And it's, that's something that's really, detrimental.
It is. And like I said, I'm just saying, I think it's human nature. And I think
you're absolutely right.
Especially with the older people. Mm-hmm. And if you want to know the toughest nuts to crack as far as the demographic, that is the hard, if you were to do like a spectrum of demographics ranging from, easiest to be open-minded, like most open-minded to hardest to possibly ever break through to somebody's brain, up over here are older Black women. That's it right there. They're not moving. They're not budging. They will follow people like Bill Clinton off a cliff. Right. And so when you're running, you learn strategy and how different demographics are. And so you really have to reach different demographics differently. Again, this is all strategy. But older Jews are not necessarily that far behind the older Black women. So in that spectrum, and so they don't like change and they like what they're comfortable with. And, you know, a lot of them are very comfortable.
Yes. And I think that that's something that a lot of people have completely lost the ability to do, is to recognize that you have to be able to talk to all demographics of people. You have to be, I mean, it's, you know, you can't, for example, when I talk to, or when I, you know, tweet at or message or whatever, you know, Republicans or people on the right about Julian Assange, you have to change your wording. You have to use words like freedom and patriot and, you know, civil liberties and, you know, those kinds of things. And I think that a lot of people, nuance is dead, and that's a real problem. I think that
I can't even, and a lot of that has to do with that we don't have face-to-face communication as much as we have online, and you don't get the same, the nuance and context is definitely lost. With Republicans also, it also helps to point out that he screwed Hillary. They like that.
Yes, they do. And that's actually, I mean, that's been very beneficial to me in speaking with them. I've actually had so much more luck with people on the right than I have with people on the left, which is endlessly depressing. It's so like, as a leftist, it's like, it kills me that's
well, they're
Sarah
not
Palin.
The Democrats are not leftists.
No, I know, but Sarah Palin came out in defense of Julian Assange before Bernie Sanders. What the fuck? Like, we live in a cartoon. It's ridiculous. But we have been going for like an hour.
I need to go. I need to go eat and
You've been very generous. I appreciate you taking this much time with us.
I always do this.
Oh,
I
God,
know
Jesse.
Missy's going to chastise
every
me
time. Every time.
I just wanted to ask you real quick about your foreign policy views and if you could break those down really fast.
I am against imperialism. So I would say for the most part, I'm against pretty much everything that we're doing right now. I think sanctions are war crimes. I think that this is a can of worms, but basically, I think that we are terrorists of the world, that we are bullying everybody. I find it disgusting. I find it embarrassing. And the next time I travel to Europe, I'm putting a Canadian flag on my luggage. So that's what I think about our foreign policy. And I'm not a pacifist. I think we do need to have a means to defend ourselves. But the reality is we haven't had to. And yet we are spending, we know how much money. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd. I don't agree with any of it.
And it's all
I mean, I don't know if that's not my foreign policy is to leave people alone unless somebody's committing a genocide, at which point the entire world needs to come down on that person like the hammer of Thor. But again, that is, and ironically, that's the only time we don't get involved. So
we get involved, but we're usually funding the genocide.
We are right now. I've been talking about Yemen. I've been talking about Yemen for, I can't even tell you how many years. I've tried to explain this so many times to people because again, we don't see it.
Right.
We don't see it. And all I think about is that the world is full of moms. And as a mom, and I think about these moms in places like, I can almost cry. Like I think about these moms in places like Yemen, and all they're trying to do is get their kid alive from point A to point B with just a little bit of peace. And it's like, this is not my enemy. This is not our enemy. This is not even our problem. And so it's so hard for me to wrap my head around how we can take so much time and energy and money to the killing of poor brown people in places that have never done anything to hurt us. It breaks my heart in a million ways. So it's not anything I would ever support. So I think it needs to be cut at least in half, our military budget. And I just think that we need to go back to where it's called the Department of Defense, not the Department of Offense.
Yeah.
And
well, they're all called defense something. Like the IDF is the Israel Defense Force.
Right. It's all ridiculous. I don't like that either. Let's be clear, and I'll say this before I go just quickly about Israel. I really think of them like I think of us. I like the country. I like the people. I've been there. There are good people there. There are decent people.
I have Jewish heritage, so
yeah,
I'm not trying to be.
No, I don't see it as
here.
No. And let me be very clear. Criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism. I call that out every single time I see it. I have no problem with that.
Agree.
Netanyahu's disgusting.
Yep.
But my thing with Israel is how I feel about us. They're us, but over there. So they're a country of good people that are stuck right now in a situation that they really can't get out of either. They're stuck with Netanyahu. Yes, they are. Look, I know I have friends in Israel. They don't like Netanyahu any more than we like Trump or we like Biden. They're not in any, they're us, but they're. Right. And I disagree with their policies like I disagree with ours, except for where they're actually committing the problems. But it's still part of our greater policy of imperialism. Israel's complicated. We have to address it from where we are now, not where we wish we had been in 1967 or 1948. And that's just the reality that we're facing. And it's not an easy thing to do. But they're wrong in pretty much every which way and how they handle their foreign policy. So yeah, I'm a hippie. I mean, really, like I believe in spreading love and teaching sustainable farming, and doing that stuff. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
agree.
that's my foreign policy.
Yeah, I would love to have you back on so we can dive deeper into some of these things.
Absolutely.
But you just tell everybody real quick where they can find you, where they can find your podcast and all that stuff.
Yeah, so we're Generational Change. That's generational with a J. Generational Change on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. We are also generationalchange.com where people can sign up if they're local to volunteer. Also, we're going to start having links for people to phone bank for candidates that we like. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JenFL23.
Excellent. So again, our guest today has been Jen Perelman. She ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida's District 23. Check out her podcast. It's really good. And I look forward to your Assange event. I'll help you if you need help finding speakers or whatever.
Sometime third weekend in March. I want to get at least a few core people to make sure their time works before we start inviting others. I want to at least have a base.
Cool. Well, seriously, just let me know if you need any help at all. I don't want to insert myself, but if you need help or if you
it's not my event. I don't own it. I just thought it would be cool.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we definitely need more coverage of Julian Assange, so I'm down to help with anything involving that. So,
all right, guys.
Okay, thanks so much for being here,
Absolutely.
and thanks everybody for watching in.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you next time. Thanks.
Take care.